Aspire to a clean career, leaving no shame for descendants. Hello everyone. Welcome to Encountering Chinese, Case Stories, Cases Judged by Bao Gong. Today, I'm going to bring you a story called Copper Coins Wedged into the Wall. In Longyang County, there was a man named Luo Qingzai. He was unruly by nature, disdainful of laws, and surrounded himself with a gang of disreputable friends. His house was spacious, so he simply turned it into a gambling den, making a living by collecting commissions. He also frequently acted as a guarantor and moneylender, which led him to befriend all sorts of idle and dubious characters. These people came and went from his house day and night, making it a place of constant chaos. Someone once advised Luo Qingzai, "A man should associate with people of higher moral standing, not those beneath him." But Luo simply laughed and said, "The world is vast, and I can tolerate all kinds of people. A real man should walk through life with an open heart, embracing all." Another person warned him, "You're keeping bad company. One day, it will get you into trouble. If you're not careful, you'll bring disaster upon yourself." As the saying goes, a raging fire burns the whole mountain, destroying jade along with the stone. Aren't you worried? Luo waved it off and said, "The sky is big enough to cover the land, and it will never fall. As long as I conduct myself properly, nothing bad will happen to me." No matter how much people tried to persuade him, Luo refused to listen and continued living as he pleased. One night, the wealthy household of Wedged was suddenly attacked by a gang of bandits. More than 50 armed robbers stormed the estate, wielding knives, spears, and torches, looting every bit of silver and treasure in sight. When the bandits finally left, Wedged's entire family wept in despair. Neighbors and friends rushed over to offer their comfort. Coincidentally, Luo Qingzai happened to pass by. Seeing the commotion, he sighed and remarked, "Wedged is rich and well known. It's only natural that thieves would target him. It seems that only those who own nothing at all can truly sleep soundly at night." Not long after, Luo Qingzai's words reached Wedged's ears. His face darkened instantly, and he felt deeply offended. He turned to his two sons and said, "Our relatives and friends all came to offer their condolences after we were robbed, but Luo Qingzai had the audacity to say something like that. If you ask me, those bandits were probably the very same scoundrels who frequent his gambling den. Those men squandered everything they had, and when they had no money left to eat, they must have banded together to raid our home. If I don't take this to the authorities, how can I swallow this injustice?" So, he wrote a complaint and submitted it to the circuit inspector Bao Gong's yamen. After reading the petition, Bao Gong immediately ordered both the plaintiff, Wedged, and the accused, Luo Qingzai, to be summoned to court for questioning. To force a confession, Bao Gong even had Luo subjected to punishment. Yet, despite the torment, Luo Qingzai continued to plead his innocence. Wedged's house was looted, but to this day, not a single thief has been caught. There is no stolen property as evidence, and no one has testified against me. Now, he's pinning the crime on me out of thin air. How can I accept such an injustice?" Wedged, enraged, shouted, "Luo Qingzai, You don't farm, you don't do business. All you do is run a gambling den, act as a guarantor, and surround yourself with vagrants of unknown origins. If that's not harboring criminals, then what is? People like you should be wiped out. Gong slammed his gavel and said sternly. It is true that Luo Qingzai leads an idle and unprincipled life, running a gambling house and standing as a guarantor for dubious people. These actions are indeed suspicious. However, to convict him of harboring criminals, we must have solid proof. To determine a person's guilt, we must first capture the thieves, recover the stolen goods, or at the very least, have a witness testify. Right now, none of these three conditions are met. Judging a man guilty based purely on speculation is far too rash. Wei Dian, your accusation seems driven more by suspicion and resentment than by facts, and therefore, it lacks merit. I will allow Luo Qingzai to post bail, under the condition that he mends his ways. But if he ever breaks the law, he will face severe punishment. Luo Qingzai was overjoyed, believing he had just escaped certain doom. He swore to turn over a new leaf. He would shut down his gambling den and never act as a guarantor again. His neighbors, seeing his change of heart, were relieved and pleased. Wei Dian, however, remained bitter. Day after day, he grumbled at home, saying, I was the one who suffered, my household was looted down to the last coin. But when I took my case to court, I got no justice, just a stomach full of anger. Is there no law left in this world? When Gong learned of this matter, he secretly pondered. Although Luo Qingzai is wayward in his conduct, he is not the real thief. But then, who are the true culprits? It seems I must devise a plan to lure them out. With that in mind, he ordered Wei Dian to be brought before him and had him flogged with 20 strikes of the paddle. Enraged, he scolded. You insolent commoner! How dare you claim that I have mishandled this case? Your house was looted, yet instead of blaming yourself for poor security, you falsely accuse an innocent man. Because of your baseless accusations, precious time was wasted, and the bandits have long since escaped. You should accept your misfortune instead of resenting me. And so, not only did Wei Dian fail to receive justice, but he also suffered a beating and was thrown into prison. The townspeople, both inside and outside the city, were abuzz with discussion. Many criticized Gong for being so hasty and reckless in his judgment, yet they were powerless to change anything. Meanwhile, it seemed as if Gong had closed the case and ceased searching for the real culprits. A few days later, the leaders of the gang, Tia Muer and Jinduzi, each caught wind of the situation and let down their guard. Believing themselves safe, they gathered their men for a grand feast, offering prayers to the gods in gratitude for this tremendous blessing. Tia Muer, thoroughly drunk, laughed heartily and said, People say Gong is divinely gifted at solving cases, but now it seems he's nothing special. May his descendants rule over this land for generations to come. With an official like him around, we'll be free to do as we please, never again living in fear. What they didn't know was that ever since Gong had imprisoned Wei Dian, he had been personally conducting covert investigations each night. That very evening, dressed in plain clothes and a simple cap, he roamed the marketplace disguised as a commoner. As he reached the western side of the city god temple, he happened to overhear the latter half of the bandits' conversation. His mind stirred. They wish for my descendants to govern this land for generations. That alone isn't suspicious. But why would they say, never again living in fear? These men don't sound like ordinary citizens. Acting swiftly, he found a sharp stone and carved 3 coin-shaped symbols into the wall as a secret mark. Then, he made his way east of the Guanyin Pavilion, where he overheard Jinduozi and his gang whispering. The city god is truly watching over us, and Bao Gong is truly a blessing. If he hadn't been so muddle-headed with this case, we'd all be in big trouble right now. Hearing this, Bao Gong grew even more alert. He thought to himself, their praise is deeply suspicious. If my so-called foolishness benefits them, it can only mean that they've done something wicked. Judging by their numbers and conversation, this gang must be the very same robbers from that night. But I am alone. Rushing in now would be like an egg striking a rock. With that in mind, he took out 3 copper coins and quietly wedged them into the cracks of the wall as another secret marker. Then, without hesitation, he returned to his residence, patiently awaiting the break of dawn. Early the next morning, Bao Gong led a group of constables and bailiffs, pretending to go to the city god temple to offer incense. As they approached the area, he immediately directed them toward the western side of the temple. Following the secret mark he had left the night before, he found the spot where 3 coin-shaped symbols were carved into the wall. Without hesitation, he ordered his men to surround the house nearby. The operation was a success. Tia Muir and 28 of his bandits were captured on the spot. Next, Bao Gong led his men east of the Guanyin Pavilion, where he located the wall with the 3 copper coins wedged in its cracks. He once again commanded his forces to encircle the house. This time, they apprehended Jinduozi and another 22 thieves, taking them all into custody for interrogation. The trial began, and Bao Gong had Tia Muir pinned down by his guards. He questioned him sternly. What grudge do you hold against Wei Dian? Why did you raid his home in the dead of night? Tia Muir and his gang stubbornly refused to confess, repeatedly protesting their innocence. Bao Gong let out a cold laugh. Didn't you say you wished for me to remain in office so that you could live carefree, without fear or worry? If that's the case, why have you been running wild under my very jurisdiction, committing such crimes? Hearing this, Tia Muir's face went pale as a ghost. He realized there was no way to hide the truth any longer and had no choice but to confess. Yes, we did rob Wei Dian's house, and split the loot among ourselves. Our crimes are unforgivable. We only beg for your mercy, my lord. Please spare our lives. Bao Gong then turned his attention to Jinduozi and his gang, ordering them to be bound and interrogated. Why did you conspire with Tia Muir in this robbery? But Jinduozi and his men were even more stubborn than Tia Muir. They refused to admit anything, swearing up and down that they were innocent. Bao Gong's expression darkened. You lot kept chanting, the city god is truly watching over us, and Bao Gong is truly a blessing. Well, if you don't confess now, you're about to experience a real headache. At these words, Jinduozi's legs nearly gave out beneath him. He instantly realized that Bao Gong must have overheard their conversation the previous night. Their secret was already exposed. There was no point in denying it any longer. Defeated, he and his men finally bowed their heads and admitted to their crimes. In the end, Bao Gong ruled that all stolen goods be recovered and returned to Wei Dian, allowing him to go home in peace. As for the bandit leaders Tia Muer, Jinduozi, and their accomplices, they were sentenced to death and scheduled for execution in the autumn, serving as a warning to others. Alright. Today's case story, Copper Coins Wedged into the Wall, concludes here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. Feel free to leave your comments and share with others. See you again in the next issue.